All right, welcome to Fireside Chat number 199. So, definitely some announcements this time around. Um, let's see. So we'll start with the big one, which is new members of the Admiralty, which is pretty cool. We have Kusiag as the new Admiral, Anarian is the new Vice Admiral, Ulfold as new Rear Admiral, and Da Silva as new Commodore. So, those of you who have been around a long time, since back in the Third Fleet era, which would have been 2008 to 2010, some of these ranks will be familiar to you. Of course, if you're familiar with military naval ranks in general, they'll be familiar. But basically, I'll try to give something of an overview of each one. So, Admiral is pretty easy. Second in command of WA, basically in charge of the whole chain of command. So, in charge of all divisions and therefore all platoons, and in charge of commissioning and decommissioning rough platoons, so new platoons, promoting and demoting and evaluating division leaders. So basically at the top of the traditional chain of command totem pole there. Vice Admiral is kind of the second to the Admiral, but the Vice Admiral is more in charge of cultural stuff in WA. So they are in charge of all houses, and therefore all families, and the leadership of houses. So part of their job is to make sure that house leadership are doing their jobs, which they do have some responsibilities. It's not really comparable to the regular ranks, but there are things that need to be done. Keeping lineage charts updated, keeping house information publicly available, and keeping that updated. Filling nobility titles, so making sure that families have earls and such, provided that the family is active and there is a actual candidate available to fill the title. They're also in charge of clan-wide events for the most part, so festivals, celebrations, etc. Even if somebody else is in charge of something like that, like the House Commander ones, the Vice Admiral is still kind of the go-to person, so they'll probably talk to them, see if they can offer help, make sure it's actually being hosted, etc. Third is the Rear Admiral. So the Rear Admiral is basically in charge of kind of the documentation side of things. So all the member review stuff, they're in charge of that. All officer training, they're in charge of that. Basically, the general assignment of duties, they are in charge of. So they also keep all the information updated. And if you just want to help the UA and you don't know who to talk to, the Rear Admiral is a good place to start because they basically have access to all the information. They track all the duties everyone is performing. And finally, Commodore. So Commodore is basically in charge of recruiting. So for one, Commodore might host clan-wide events or initiatives or some such to promote recruitment, and they're also in charge of recruit retention. So they are supposed to be the go-to person if recruits have any questions. They should talk to them and their staff. They may go and assist individual divisions or platoons with recruitment. They may run events like recruitment classes or anything, or just try to help people. They also try to make sure that everything is pretty straightforward for guests and new recruits, that they all the information they need about WA is accessible, that's as easy to understand as possible, that they can navigate things as easily as possible. So that kind of gives an overview of those four ranks. Check out the ranks section in About WA as well. That discusses them along with the rest of the ranks. I think the platoon rollout I've pretty well explained, but those are all out now. So it's a bit hard to explain in a way to people who were around the Third Fleet era. Well, it's not that hard actually. Basically, they're just platoons without set rosters. So what that means is that each platoon is basically just a leadership structure. There's no rank and file WA members that are permanent parts of a platoon. So in a way, they're kind of lore entities because they really only exist as long as people are playing the game, kind of, in their heads, basically. But what they do is the leaders of the platoon will write a situation report every month, and they list who is active playing that game. Let's just keep track of who's playing the game, who's doing what, gives people a way to get promoted because you can get promoted through the leadership structure of the platoon and the division that it's in, and so on. And they give people just a go-to person on that game who's kind of in charge of things, whether there's in-game decisions that need to get made or WA decisions related to the game that need to get made. That's the person that gets it done. So hopefully that gives some overview. You can see announcements for the list of platoons and leadership as well. I will give a shout out to all the people who are leading platoons and divisions, and especially our foreign members of the Admiralty, because there is a lot of stuff to get done right now, so I appreciate everybody stepping up in that regard. Particularly with the Admiralty, because they are taking over a lot of the duties that I traditionally would have to do. So that's really nice for me, and it frees me up to do other stuff. Like something I'm working on right now is the Git roles, which of course is already working, but basically I wanted to update the icons and re-alphabetize everything is the main thing, because we've had some games that I've added that are out of order, or we ran out of room. So I'm trying to redo it. Unfortunately, Discord's giving this rate limited error earlier today, so hopefully now it will be fixed. And I can see people are using their reactions. They're not actually working yet, so don't worry about doing that right now. But I understand because I left it in an unfinished state. Blame Discord. But I'll complete that during office hours, I believe. Trying to think if there's anything else. Quote wall is back. If you want to add something, let me know. And I can either just add you in so you can post, or I can just post it. I'm asking that they be reasonably appropriate and that they be WA-related quotes, as in quotes from WA members. They don't have to be about WA, but, some, random quote from a person at Starbucks. It's not a quote wall. You want to post that good luck gap? Go ahead. But let's see if there's anything else here. Stay tuned to announcements. So all four new members of the Admiralty should be kind of making their own little announcements where they just kind of talk a little bit about their ranks and what they're going to be doing. And I just realized a problem. Okay. Yep. Sorry, I just realized, unfortunately, there is an issue with the roles. Meaning that the new Admiralty ranks are not properly set up yet. So I'll have to do that. Let me add that to the job board so I do not forget. Okay. I think that might be about it. I guess. Did I already announce with the. No, probably not. Okay. So I did update the rules channel a little bit. Not any rule changes, but it's bullet point format now and maybe a little bit easier to read. I kind of abbreviated it slightly. And I have been updating about WA as well. So it should be all up to date. The only thing that might continue to change slightly is the ranks section. So it has the new Admiralty ranks. It also lists the requirements for each rank. So one thing I want to emphasize is that the time requirements are mostly gone for the ranks now. So the hope is that people can just move up the ranks through effort if they want to, instead of having to kind of sit around for a month each time waiting, which can kind of kill people with motivation. Isn't that interesting? And also doesn't really tell us anything about somebody's capabilities either. So there's now kind of a few different ways to achieve many of the different ranks. And one more thing that's coming down the pipeline is officer training. So it's already there, but the plan is to split it up into smaller pieces. So a certification that you get for Chief Petty Officer, MCPO, Warrant Officer, Ensign, and Lieutenant is what I was thinking. So 5 different kind of components rather than just the giant officer training right now just to get Warrant Officer. Split into 5 components is the plan. But if you want to start officer training, that's the Rear Admiral again. So talk to Ulfold about that, and we'll get you assigned a trainer and get started. But currently, we are in the process of reworking the training. I think that's about it. So I'm gonna head off for office hours and see people then, or next week for Fireside Chat number 200. Should be a big one.